Gentlemen, you have my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
Gears of War is back, baby. I mean, did you see that trailer for E-Day? I mean, typically I don't get excited about trailers because, you know, I want to see the actual gameplay.
Jay, could use some help here?
But even I had a smile on my face watching this. And I mean, having played every single Gears game, I feel like I have a pretty good idea of how E-Day is gonna go.
Get in there.
So, with a new Gears of War game right on the horizon, and even a Gears collection rumored to be coming out in the near future, I think it's well worth our time to just kind of look back on the series and discuss that original trilogy. So, without further ado...
Oh shit, this is gonna be awesome. Frag out!
We will win this war.
And I want to mention right off the top that I actually played the original version of the game as well as the Ultimate version. I played the Ultimate version a little bit on PC and then the rest of the way on the Xbox. You know, probably like Cliff Bleszinski intended.
My name is Cliff Bleszinski. The game is Gears of War. Let's check it out.
But alright, with that said, let's jump into the story.
Welcome back to the Army, soldier.
Shit.
Right, so Gears of War takes place on Sarah, a stand-in sort of alternate version of Earth. And things here are, well, I mean, they're not going great. Humans have been engaged in a war for some time with the Locusts, an army made of humanoid grunts, giant spiders, and all sorts of weird alien-looking creatures. But they're not aliens, or at least not in the traditional sense, because they don't arrive via spaceship or teleporter or anything like that, but rather they just sort of erupted from underground one day. Emergence Day, to be exact. In the course of just a day, they eradicate a quarter of the human population, putting humanity on the back foot and turning the entire planet into a war-torn hellscape. The game takes place 14 years later, with the player taking control of Marcus Phoenix, after Dom, his best friend and brother-in-arms, helps him escape prison. And over the course of the game, you'll team up with Baird and Cole, another 2 soldiers, as you try to obtain data on where the Locusts are coming from and detonate a bomb underground in hopes of killing every last one of them. And I mean, that's pretty much it. Detonate a bomb, end the war, simple enough.
So we going back to base?
I guess so.
Good, cause I'm done.
It's a premise that can help you get from set piece to set piece, all of which are awesome, by the way, but I'll get to those in a bit.
And I thought the food in prison smelled bad.
But where I think Gears of War really shines is with its characters and world building. Every character in Gears absolutely drips in charisma, and the way that they interact with each other is super entertaining. They'll crack jokes, they'll argue, and they'll just sort of banter in believable ways. They have a sort of chemistry that I think is really rare to have between characters.
We saw you play.
That's right, everybody wants to see the train, baby.
Hey Marcus, remember? Division playoffs, 40-yard line?
I remember you owe me $20.
Oh yeah? See me after the war.
And it all has to do with their individual personalities and even down to their voices and how they contrast with each other. Like, you've got the main protagonist, Marcus, voiced by John DiMaggio, or as I like to call him, Bender.
Bender, honey, we love you.
Yeah, baby, I know it.
And he's got this super gruff voice and serious demeanor. He's a guy who's been fighting for way too long, and presumably he's probably seen way too much by this point.
Hey, are you the Marcus Phoenix? The one who fought at Asfield Fields?
Yep.
Wow, cool!
Not really.
And what's funny is that in a 2009 article, IGN listed him at number 4 of a top 10 most overrated character list, saying his personality consists entirely of grunting, shouting, and shooting. And I have to assume that this is some sort of rage bait.
This is bullshit.
Because imagine if you said that 2016 Doom guy had no personality other than ripping and tearing. Like, yeah, he rips and tears a lot. But he also shows frustration, impatience, and even a sort of sympathy, like when he saves Vega from self-destruction. And like, maybe that was for selfish reasons, sure, but you still get my point, he still saves it. But my point is that I actually just think that Marcus is a tired, frustrated war veteran, and his frustrations come through. I mean, especially in the later games.
Cover that door. Carmine, Dom, guard the rear. No!
But his super gruff personality almost directly contradicts with Dom. Dom has a lighter voice, he cracks more jokes, and overall he just provides a lot more levity to the situations.
Roger that.
Jump on a moving train and try to recapture a bomb. This day just keeps getting better and better.
And then you have the other two protagonists, Baird and Cole. Baird is an engineer, and to be frank, he's got a bit of an attitude problem.
Yeah, that's right, asshole.
He's sarcastic, he complains a lot, and I mean, he's just a real negative Nancy.
You know I'm right.
But then he's always paired off with Cole, a guy who never lacks enthusiasm, always having something positive to say, and really never fails to really sort of hype them up for whatever situation. I mean, he's the goddamn Cole Train.
Oh, the Cole Train don't go woo-woo. It's woo!
But when all these guys are together, like, I never found any conversation just unenjoyable or boring to listen to. It makes to where even the moments where no combat is really happening are still moments that are, you know, enjoyable to sit through.
I'm gonna ruin their day. You know what I mean? I'm great to pay.
Man, don't you ever get tired?
Hell to the no.
And even aside from the main plot and the characters, the world is just super interesting. The way that the Locust just sort of literally popped up out of nowhere to wage a war for some reason is super intriguing. And the way that the characters are absolutely jacked compared to other, you know, normal people leaves a lot to interpretation, at least in the first game. Like, you know, is it just a stylistic choice, or were they genetically enhanced to, you know, fight the Locust? And even the way the architecture looks, where sort of like the characters themselves, everything seems to be larger than it really should be. It's just super interesting world building, where questions can kind of be raised in an organic fashion. But I mean, look, I really like the plot, and I love the characters. I like the sense of scale to the world and the questions about its history that are raised by what were probably just stylistic choices. But you know what I like even more? Few games have such satisfying gameplay as Gears of War. Like, really, the only thing that comes to mind is something like the newer Doom games, where you're just absolutely tearing through enemies, you know, leaving them in a state of factory pre-assembly.
Rock and roll.
Gears of War is, of course, it's a cover shooter. While it's not the first, it is absolutely the blueprint for cover-based shooters going forward. pressing A to just absolutely slam into the nearest wall so you can, peek over or around in order to just lay into whatever grub you can set your sights on. It's a system that just doesn't get old. And I think a common criticism of Gears games is that they feel repetitive. You go from arena to arena, hugging walls and shooting bullet sponge enemies until they're all dead, rinse, and repeat. And that's just not a criticism I can really agree with or even understand. I mean, in the first game alone, you actually get some pretty incredible set pieces. And often. You start out doing the standard cover shooting, sure, but then you're taking on an extremely dangerous locust, trying to stay quiet and avoid attacks until you can take it out. And then you're thrown into a night level, where you have to light your way in order to survive the krill, these bat-like swarms that kill you almost instantly if you're in the dark. And then you're driving a big rig and blasting light to kill those krill.
Burn them!
Then you're taking on a giant spider-like locust. Then you're fighting your way up a moving train. You just get these cool set pieces one right after the other. And so, saying that Gears of War is too repetitive is just not a criticism I can get behind. But, even if the game was entirely just the cover shooting in samey looking arenas, I think the combat is so satisfying in itself, I might actually be okay with that. And I think half of that has to do with just how awesome the actual guns that you get are.
Oh yeah!
Guns in Gears of War are loud, distinct, and they feel great to use. I actually don't think that there are any bad ones in the first game. Even the first weapon that you get, the Hammer Burst, is great for accurate headshots. The snub pistol is fast shooting, and honestly does decent enough damage for what it is. The Bolt Hawk is a Magnum revolver that just wrecks anything you can get in your sights. And speaking of sights, the Long Shot is a sniper rifle that can one-shot most enemies. The Nasher shotgun is, honestly, it's one of the best shotguns in gaming.
I'd like to keep this handy for close encounters.
There's also a bow that you'll get later on in the game with explosive arrows, as well as grenades that are absolutely devastating. There's the Boom Shot, that big grenade launcher that you get from, the boomers. And finally, there's of course the Lancer. Dude, this is just one of the best weapons in science fiction. Sure, the pulse rifle from Aliens is sick, but it doesn't have a chainsaw attached.
It's pathetic.
And lightsabers are neat, sure, but I gotta take them down a tier because they don't exactly have fully automatic assault rifles attached to them. The Lancer is just the absolute go-to. It's accurate at range, it does a fair amount of damage, and dude, chainsaw bayonet. Let me repeat that. Chainsaw bayonet. But there is one final weapon you'll occasionally get to use. And this thing, the Hammer of Dawn is an orbital laser used for only the hardest to kill enemies, like that big locust I talked about earlier, the Berserker. And my only complaint with this thing is that you don't get to use it more often. Because jeez. But
gun's not just about shooting, it's about reloading.
Yeah, man, I absolutely have to point out the active reload mechanic used for basically every gun. When you reload, a little bar appears with a moving marker. You can let this reload animation play out, which, it only takes a few seconds, or you can tap the reload button again in the correct spot in order to speed up the reload. And if timed perfectly, you even get a damage boost from the bullets you just loaded. And this has got to be one of the most intelligent and engaging designs in a game, making reloading its own risk-reward minigame to be played while you're playing, the main game. It's absolutely excellent. And it's a system I'm kind of surprised we haven't really seen in other games, especially in games that I feel are in the spirit of Gears, like Space Marine 2. So I mean, weapons, from the way they look and sound, down to how they handle and even the way they reload with that active reload, are just a blast to use.
Back in your hole!
But I think that weapons in games are only ever half of the equation. I mean, what good are they if you don't have anything fun to shoot them with? The Locusts are a really interesting enemy force, especially the main ones you'll fight, the grubs. They almost look human, and they almost sound human. But they're not human, so, And aside from actual lore or story stuff, they're super fun to fight. They stick to cover just like you do, and what I found really interesting is that they're pretty smart. They'll flank you and they'll rush you with shotguns and throw grenades to, get you out of cover. I started the game on hardcore, and I mean, they were absolutely kicking my butt. And never once did I feel like it was unfair or anything. It just felt like they were really good at flanking and flushing me out. And out of that original trilogy, I gotta say, I think that this one is easily the most difficult. But aside from the main grubs, you've also got wretches, these small golem-looking critters that are fast, agile, and in groups can absolutely dumpster you. Then there are the boomers, these really big guys that use grenade launchers and are pretty difficult to take down. The Theron guards, they use the explosive bows, and then there are the bigger enemies that act as bosses or mini-bosses. Like, you'll encounter that berserker enemy type a couple of times, having to take them down with the Hammer of Dawn. You'll take on that gross spider hand looking locust, the Corpser, at one point, and in the Ultimate Edition of Gears, you'll even have to take on the Brumac, which is essentially a walking tank. Finally, at the end of the game, you'll take on who is essentially the main antagonist, General Rom, on a moving train. And I think every single enemy type that you come across is well designed and fun to fight. And I don't think there was ever really a time I felt annoyed by, what I was having to deal with. And while the later games do go on to expand on both the weapons you get as well as the enemy variety, I think the enemies you fight and what you fight them with are both excellent here and build a great foundation for the rest of the series. But there's one last thing I want to talk about with the first Gears of War, and it extends into Gears 2 and Gears 3 as well, and that's the presentation. Gears of War is, for better or worse, a product of its time. I mean, it came out in a time when games were still being really heavily marketed to, a male audience. But what I really mean when I say it's a product of its time is how the game looks. Gears has a very bland color palette. Lots of grays, lots of browns. I mean, when it comes to art direction, it has a ton of style, like I mentioned earlier, the big beefy characters and the grand architecture, but graphically, it's a bit hard on the eyes at this point. And I'll be the first to admit that I do actually like how games look from this era. I think the way a lot of people still like how games like GoldenEye or Super Mario 64 is how I feel about this era. In a way that I find kinda hard to explain, I just find a lot of those 7th gen games aesthetically pleasing, but there's definitely no denying that Gears comes from that time when games had the so-called piss filter.
You'd keep your mouth shut if you knew it was good for you, buddy.
Tic-tac, sir?
Get the hell out of here.
Games like Gears, Fallout 3, New Vegas, Resident Evil 5, Resistance, I mean, the list goes on. But dude, I'm not sure if it's nostalgia or if I'm just so jaded by the modern gaming landscape. I just really like how Gears looks. And I mean, the Ultimate Edition on PC genuinely still looks great. And even beyond raw graphics, I like a lot of the other stuff too. Characters and their armor look really cool. The way enemies explode into bits when you kill them is always satisfying. And dude, I haven't even talked about the music. The music in Gears absolutely rules. I mean, that main theme has been stuck in my head for almost 20 years now. 20 years. Oh my gosh. I can feel my bones turn to dust.
You just can't wait for me to die, can you?
But I mean, that's really a good way to describe the first Gears, or even all of the original games. Gears of War is a game that has stayed firmly in my thoughts. It's a game I've played probably a dozen times through by now, both in single player and in co-op. And while I never played the multiplayer, my understanding is that it kicked ass too. I think Gears of War came out in a time when a lot of people were really developing their taste in gaming, myself included. I mean, I know a lot of people like their real-time strategy games or turn-based tactics or platformers, but I played Gears and decided pretty much right then and there in 2007, this is the kind of game I want to play all the time. Games with over-the-top characters and action set pieces with an absolute ton of violence and gore. But look, man, that's Gears of War. And this is just part 1 of a series I'm gonna do. So you know we're still gonna talk about Gears 2, which had more action set pieces, more enemies to kill, a lot more gore, and it says here, a lot more worms?
It's a giant worm! They're sinking cities with a giant worm!